debate. The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is a privilege to rise today to speak in support of Bill C-225. At the outset, I want to congratulate my colleague, the honourable member for Yorkton Melville, for bringing forward this important and much-needed legislation to protect women and close a glaring void in justice under the criminal code. This legislation is appropriately named after Cassie Durham and her pre-born daughter, Molly. Just 10 weeks away from giving birth to Molly, Cassie was brutally murdered, and Cassie's killer was appropriately charged with first-degree murder. But what charges did Cassie's killer face for targeting Cassie as a pregnant woman and terminating a perfectly viable pregnancy against the wishes of Cassie? Mr. Speaker, the answer is that no charges were laid because there were no charges to be laid under the criminal code. In 2005, Olivia Talbot was pregnant with her pre-born son, Lane Jr. Like Cassie Durham, Olivia Talbot was brutally murdered. Her killer shot at Olivia Talbot 3 times, and by his own admission, he said that he targeted specifically Lane Jr., and yet no charges could be laid for those crimes. Mr. Speaker, for the victims' families of Olivia Talbot and Cassie Durham and other families, they ask, where is the justice? Where is the justice when there is no provision in the criminal code that would hold criminals who target pregnant women accountable? Where is the justice when there is no provision in the criminal code to hold those persons who violently terminate a woman's pregnancy against that woman's choice? And you know, Mr. Speaker, the answer to those families who ask, where is the justice, is that there is no justice. Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, the stories of Cassie Durham and Olivia Talbot are not isolated stories. Indeed, over the last 15 years, some 24 reported cases have involved women being attacked or murdered while pregnant. Now, there are some who say that this legislation is not necessary. They say simply provide that those who target pregnant women, that can be an aggravating factor in sentencing. Mr. Speaker, it already is an aggravating factor in sentencing at common law. And, Mr. Speaker, Bill C-225 would codify the common law, and that is a step in the right direction. But simply providing that targeting a pregnant woman is an aggravating factor at sentencing is not sufficient for justice to be truly done. An important component of our criminal justice system is that criminals are held accountable for all of the crimes that they commit against their victims, and not just some of the crimes. Hear, hear. And yet, clearly in the case of Cassie Durham and Olivia Talbot, their perpetrators, their killers, were only charged with some of the crimes and held accountable for some of the crimes and not all of the crimes. And, Mr. Speaker, that's unjust. But with respect to sentencing, take, for example, someone who knowingly targets a pregnant woman, assaults that pregnant woman, and in the process of assaulting that pregnant woman, terminates that woman's viable pregnancy. What would happen to that individual if targeting a pregnant woman were merely an aggravating factor? Well, it is likely that that individual would be charged with aggravated assault. The maximum penalty for aggravated assault is 14 years, and because it's an aggravating factor, it's more likely that the perpetrator would be sentenced closer to 14 years than less, which is a positive thing. But let's face the reality that what would have occurred in that situation is something more than aggravated assault. A woman's viable pregnancy would have been terminated against her will, her bodily integrity infringed upon, and her choice as a woman violated. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-225 recognizes that reality and would give judges the tools that they need to hold criminals who commit those kinds of crimes truly accountable by potentially putting those types of criminals away a lot longer than 14 years. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are some who say, and we heard it today from several honourable members who spoke, that this is really about reopening the abortion debate. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that in Canada, abortion is available and lawful for the full 9 months of a woman's pregnancy, and Bill C-225 does absolutely nothing to change that fact. Not only does Bill C-225 do nothing to change that fact, Bill C-225 expressly provides that a pre-born child is not a human being at law, to leave no ambiguity and no confusion that Bill C-225 has absolutely nothing to do with abortion. What Bill C-225 has a lot to do with, however, is justice. Justice for women who are targeted because they are pregnant, justice for women who are injured because they are pregnant, justice for women whose rights are violated, and justice for women by ensuring that those who violate the rights of women are held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. So, Mr. Speaker, let us, as a House of Commons, do what is right, what is fair, what is just. Let us close this glaring loophole in justice under the Criminal Code and pass Bill C-225.
Reprise du débat.